welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have my first half of November wrap up, and it feels insane to say that it's the 14th, and I'm still on my roll from October, where in the month of October I read more than one book a day, not really, I wasn't finishing a book a day, but based off of the total, it was as if I finished a book a day. And I'm already at that again for November. So today is November 14th, and I have finished 16 books, and I'm in the middle, very close to finishing a 17th one, which I will definitely be finishing today. So I am on a roll. And again, like I've been saying in a lot of my other videos, I think it's just been my escape mechanism right now, so I'm going to take advantage of it, especially considering baby boy will be here in February, so then I'll have 2 kids, and I feel like it's going to change my reading for a little bit there. So I feel like my brain is get all the books in now while you can. So I'm not complaining by any means. I realized I missed a book technically in my October wrap up, so I'm going to really briefly talk about it. And it was A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight. I was reading this one, and I got, I want to say about 40% in. I was reading it as an ebook, and I ended up DNFing it. It just wasn't my jam. It was about a woman who goes missing, and the husband is obviously accused, so he calls his friend who he hasn't talked to in a long time, and he wants her to represent him. It was just really boring. I just was getting absolutely nothing out of it, and there was no motivation to keep repicking it back up, so I ended up DNFing it. But this was an October read. I just realized that I never put it in my wrap-up anywhere. So that got DNF'd last month. And then on to this month. Now, I have to say, I've had a lot of lows in terms of books that were just generic 3-star reads. But I've had 4 5-star reads already this month. And I don't remember a month that's happened recently, so I'm just going to take it. That's amazing for me. So let's just dive right in. The first book is a 5-star read, and that is The Riverbed Gap by Denise Hunter. I feel like this comes as no surprise, just because I love her books, and I feel like she just is one of those authors that I can just reach for, and I know I'm not going to be disappointed with, which is exactly why I picked it up in the first place. I was having a really bad week, and I just needed a book that I knew was going to just be good, and it was just going to take my mind off things, and that's exactly what this book did for me. And I read it as a Kindle. I borrowed it from Hoopla, just because my brain has been very all over the place with what type of format it's willing to take in at any given time, and at that point it just wanted to scroll through an ebook. So I read it as an ebook, and I loved it. So we're following this new series where this woman is coming to town. She's going to meet her boyfriend's family, and on her way there, a deer kind of jumps out in front of her, and so she tries to swerve, and she avoids the deer, but then she ends up almost going over a cliff, and in walks this deputy sheriff kind of guy, and he's I'm gonna save you, and they kind of have this really adorable meet cute, which is very problemsome because of the fact that she's on her way to meet her boyfriend's family. They save each other, boom, boom, and then they go, and when she gets there, she finds out that the sheriff is actually her boyfriend's brother. So lots of can of worms, but I really enjoyed this one. Normally I don't love it when it's you're in a committed relationship and you start to fall for somebody else, but I feel like Denise handled it in a very respectful way where it wasn't it didn't feel cringy. Their romance felt so genuine and real that I was all here for it. Cannot wait for the next book. I immediately pre-ordered the next book because, obviously, but really enjoyed this one. Gave it 5 stars. It just gives you all the good feels. Then I listened to House of Correction by Nikki French. I decided to listen to it because I accidentally bought the large print edition, and I just wasn't in the mood to lug this thing around. So when I saw it on Hoopla, I was okay, I'm just gonna listen to it that way, and I found it to be okay. I had high hopes for Nikki French. I heard that they were a fantastic author duo. I think it's a husband-wife duo, and it's about a woman who, goes to jail for committing a crime that she believes she didn't commit, and, she doesn't have, any, real, like, recollection of it. So it's like, is she lying to herself about the fact that she didn't do it, or did she actually do it? We're not sure. And I just felt like this story was just okay. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I just felt like I expected more. I wanted more inner conflict of, like, did she or didn't she do it? And I just, like, felt like I didn't necessarily, like, care. And at one point she is trying to represent herself in court, and she just comes off extremely childish. And I wasn't a huge fan. So, like, it was okay. Do I regret reading it? No, but it just, like, it didn't do anything for me. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I listened to The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda. I've been, like, slightly avoiding this one. So I waited for the paperback to come out. So I haven't been waiting on it for too long. I think I got it back in June. But I had been really, really nervous about this one because a lot of my friends who also really like Megan Miranda weren't that thrilled with this one. So when I saw it was available on Libby, I put my hold on and I waited until it came through. And once it came through, I picked it up. So we're following this girl, and she's kind of famous for being a survivor of this storm where she was a child and she was out in a storm. I think she was like they think she was sleepwalking, and she ends up going missing for 3 days, and they're like, there's no way you're going to find her alive. And they found her alive. So she's kind of like famous for that. It's now years later. I think it's like 15 years later or something like that. And she has like changed her name. She's kind of reinvented herself. But then there's like a murder that kind of happens that she like stumbles into, and like it starts to reveal some of her old secrets, and it seems like her past might be out to get her again. And she's trying to figure out all these pieces and how they either relate to her past or is it something completely unrelated. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. There was a twist at the end. I did not see it coming, and I was like all here for it. If you can like give me a twist that like is plausible and I still didn't see it coming, like I'm here for it. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I enjoyed listening to the audiobook. I think the audiobook was definitely the way to go with this one, just because it kept me engaged and it kept me wanting to know what was happening. So I am very pleased to say that I didn't fall into the 3-star and last category for this one. I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to Passing by Nella Larson. This is I don't know if it's a classic or if it's considered a modern classic, because I think it was written in the 20s. And I had been really excited for this one because Brie really loved it. So I was like, I think I'll love it too. And like I knew that it was probably what inspired The Vanishing Half, and I kept putting it off, and I kept putting it off and kept putting it off for like no real reason. I think because it was a classic, it was intimidating to me. So when I found it on Hoopla and it was like a 4-hour audiobook, I was like, I could get that done today. I could do it. I could finally do it. I put it on my backlist books of books that I needed to read before the year was over. So I finally got to it. And I gave it 3 stars. Like I wasn't that impressed with it. I think the hard part is it's so short. So we're following a woman who she's very light-skinned. So she is married to a racist man who like doesn't realize that she is actually black, and then she like bumps into her friend, and they decide to, and like that person was like really still close with the African American community. So like I don't know, I'm very confused by this book. I did give it 3 stars, but it felt like because it was so short, I could not get connected enough. I felt like I kept confusing Claire and Irene, because I think we end up fully getting Irene's perspective, but the synopsis makes it sound like you're getting Claire's perspective, but I'm almost 100%, it was confusing. I probably shouldn't have given it 3 stars, but like I get what the author was going for, and then we get to the end, and the end ends in like a middle of a scene. Like it feels like there should be like another like 200 pages to this book or something. So unfortunately, it just like left me wanting more. It left me I just wish it was longer, so it could have just been fleshed out a little bit more than it was. Then I read The Charm Offensive by Alison Catrone. This one has been everywhere buzzing like crazy on Bookstagram, so I wanted to give it a try. And we're following our two main characters. We're following Deb, and he works for this, like, it's essentially like The Bachelor, right? I forgot what this show is called. Oh, it's called Ever After. That was silly. So it's called Ever After, and he is obsessed with love and getting people to fall in love. And he's usually a handler for the girls. And this time around, for some reason, they put him in charge of the prince. And this prince is like no prince they've ever had before. This prince definitely is going through some anxiety and a whole bunch of other issues. And they're trying to figure out how they can, like, promote him. And our prince, Charlie, is really on the show because he basically got fired from his own company, which is insane. And so he's trying to figure out, like, if he, like, puts himself into a situation like this, maybe he will make himself hireable again. And they end up having a romance instead. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was super cute and adorable. And I loved this fun Bachelor type of storyline. I don't actually watch The Bachelor. I used to watch The Bachelor when I was like 10. But then I like fell off it. But I still we love watching reality, like, love shows. Just not that one in particular. So it was still fun to see them, like, going on these dates and the behind the scenes with trying to set up drama. Then I read on Kindle The War Widow by Tara Moss. I got this one in the beginning of the year because I saw Mama Leland from Mama Leland's Book Nook. Really love this book. So I, without even reading the synopsis, just saw the cover and was like, I need to have this. And then I kept letting it sit on my shelf because I just didn't know enough about it. So then when I saw that I could put it on hold on Libby, I did, and I grabbed it. And this is about a woman, and it's like right after the war, and she is trying to take over her, like, dad's, like, PI business. And she encounters a case where this mother is very concerned her son has gone missing, and now it's up to her to figure out where he went. I gave this one 3 stars. It was okay. It's the first book of the series, and I don't think I'll continue on with the series at all. I just found it to be kind of confusing. It would jump in the middle of a scene where suddenly it was like an action scene, and I was like, where'd this come from? I don't know how we got here. And then, like, the story was obviously, like, the mystery was just a smaller part of a bigger whole picture, and it just felt a little disconnected throughout. So unfortunately, I enjoyed it. It's just I never got to that point where I was like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was okay. They're not all going to be for me. Then I decided, like a crazy person, I put this book on hold as well through Libby because I felt like maybe the format I had it in was why I never pick it up. That's Misery. So I finally read this one. This one was on my October TBR. I put it off again, and then I saw it was on Libby, and I was like, you know what? Put your hold on for it. Try it as a Kindle. I was like, maybe I'm just, like, intimidated by the fact that it's mass market. Maybe that's why. So I decided to pick it up as a Kindle book. I read this in one sitting. Pretty much I read it all in one day. And, like, this book is technically, like, over 400 pages. And I read it in one day. It started off strong. If you didn't know, Misery is about a man who is an author, and he gets into a very bad car accident, and his number one fan is there to save the day and take him in and mend him back to health. And while she's got him in her grip, she decides to make him rewrite the ending of her favorite series because she is not happy with the way that he ended his series, and she's pretty nasty about it. It started off okay. I was fine with it. I was like, these are short chapters. We're good. This is fine. And then by the end, I was like, this book needs to end now. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. I just didn't love it. It felt like it was really nothing of a story. It was very repetitive. If this woman used the word cockadoodle, is that the word she used? She used it all the time. And the thing that made me really mad was, like, she goes on this whole thing where she, like, hates that this author, like, swears in this, like, other book. Like, he wrote a new book that wasn't part of the series that she loves. And she's like, these authors and they swear and all this stuff. You don't swear like that in real life. Yet that she used the N-word. And I'm sorry, for a book that was published in 1987, you know that the N-word is not okay anymore. So I just, no, that was not okay. And then there were like excerpt scenes from Misery, and it just which is like the story that he wrote, and it just wasn't good. Like, it was boring. It took me out of the story. I started skipping some of those chapters. There's like 3 or 4. There's not a lot, but like it would take me out of the story, especially because it was kind of like a historical fiction-y story in this thriller. So it just, I couldn't do it. 2 stars. I'm glad I finally got it off my shelf because I've had it forever, and I kept saying that if I didn't read it this year, I was going to unhaul it anyway. So I'm glad that at the end of the day, too, I really only wasted 1 day on it. So that's gone. Then I read a 5-star read, and that was The Last Guest by J.P. Pomare. And this one I saw on Janelle from What She Sees' page on Instagram, and I don't know why. There was just something about it that was like, you need to read this. And I bought it instantly on a random whim. And so I told myself that because I bought it on the random whim, I need to read it like ASAP. And so I'm glad that I did because it was phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars. This is about a couple. They are going through just things as couples do, and they have a guest house that they just like don't get to as often as they would like to. And so they decide to rent it out as an Airbnb, and obviously things go wrong. This is set in New Zealand, which was really fun. It kept me on my toes. It kept me really curious. I didn't see the ending coming. It tackles voyeurism, and it tackles possible cheating. There is an infertility plot line that is drawn throughout this as well, which could be triggering for you. So if that's something that you cannot read about, I would not pick this one up. But I really liked this one. I could not put it down. I was like mad every time I had to put it down because I was like, I just want to know what's happening. So 5 stars for this one. Then with Janelle, speaking of her, we decided we were going to do a buddy read together. And we decided to pick up The Neighbor's Secret by Alison Heller, and this was rough. I think she ended up going 2 stars. I ended up going 3 stars because I felt like it kind of redeemed at the end. We actually almost DNF'd it. We got to a point and we were like, we need to put this on pause. And then we both ended up going back to it. So this is following this neighborhood. And these women have this book club. And there's also this like vandal going on in the neighborhood. And nobody knows who this vandal is. We're also getting weird excerpts of like people telling their story to like it must be like a police officer telling their story. So we know someone dies too. But we don't know who they are. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know any of that. It was really boring. Janelle and I had very opposite opinions in the way it was boring, though. Like, she really liked the beginning. By the middle, she tuned off. And by the end, she just didn't care. I was the opposite. I didn't care for, like, the first, like, 70%. And then the ending is what hooked me back in. So, we were, like, opposites. Where, like, she liked the beginning. I liked the end. So I don't know. This writing style was very hard to get through. I said to her at one point when we were chatting, I said, this author talks a lot, but doesn't actually say anything. Like one of those people who talks and talks and talks and talks, but at the end of the day, you're like, you just talked in circles. I don't even know. Like, did you have a point to what you were saying? Like, it was rough. So I gave it 3 stars. And she gave it 2. So I would say probably stay away from this one. I know Chloe read it. Chloe gave it 2 stars. I wouldn't read that one if I were you. Then, because we decided to put that one on pause, she goes, let's put it on pause. Like, I'm sorry that didn't work out. And so she decided she was going to start her next read. So her next read happened to be a book that I also had on my shelf. So I was like, why don't we like kind of buddy read that one together instead? So we ended up picking up The Collective by Allison Galen. And this is a book that I haven't even hauled yet. I got this one in my November Book of the Month box. This one was one that I kind of just got just to get a box. Like, I wasn't actually really excited about my November box. And I was like, well, this one sounds okay. Like, I wasn't really pleased with any of the 5 choices. And then I gave this one 5 stars. Maybe it's something about red. Somebody commented on my Instagram post because I put them together, and I was like, they do look very similar to each other. But this one is about a mother, and she, her daughter's killer has basically gone unpunished. It's about to be the anniversary of it. She's still dealing with a lot of grief about it. And her daughter's killer basically is like getting all these like high accolades in something, and she's like, this is ridiculous. And she kind of like goes viral because she goes to the event where he gets the award, and she just goes nuts. And when she's leaving prison, this woman like slips her a card, and it's like for this Facebook group. But the Facebook group also leads her into this like dark web of women who are very upset the fact that their children's killers have never seen any type of punishment, and they decide that they're going to do something about it. This was unputdownable. I was so gripped. I didn't see the ending coming. It was insane. The author is not scared to take risks and do things with their characters. And I just like could not get enough of this book. And I really want to read more by her. I think this is not actually her debut novel. I think that she's written something else. So I'm going to have to go. Yeah, she's actually written a lot of things, actually. So I'm going to have to go hunt these out and put them on my wish list because this was fantastic. 5 stars. Love when books can surprise you in that way. Like, some books surprise you in the worst possible way, and some books really take you by surprise in the best of ways, and that was definitely one of them. I finally finished When We Left Cuba by Chanel Clayton, so I did go back to this audiobook. I had about 5 days left of my borrow, and I was like, if I don't finish it now, I probably never will. So I did, and I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. We're following a woman, and she is living in America. She's Cuban. She's had to leave her home, and the CIA kind of finds a way to have her help out and try to get close to Castro to see if they can, like, possibly assassinate him or do something just to get him out of power. She's also having, like, a love affair with somebody that she's not supposed to be having a love affair with, which is very annoying because I felt like there was really no point to that storyline at all. I don't know why it was necessary. I don't know why she couldn't have just had a regular love affair, like, with somebody that she's actually able to be in love with. I don't know. The forbidden love affair just is the thing that really bothered me, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. I found it okay. I will probably still try her books again. I just feel like this one just wasn't for me. Next Year in Havana, though, really good. This one, just saying. Then I read, as a Kindle book, They Went Left by Monica Hesse. I was basically just looking for any books that were available immediately for borrow, and this was one of them. So I decided to borrow this one, and this one is about a woman in World War II, and she and her family get taken in, and basically anybody who went left died instantly, and she and her brother went right. And so the war is now over. She has been released, and she is trying to find her brother. Originally, I was gonna, like, this book started really well. I was like, this could potentially be a 4-star read. And then by the end, I was like, oh my God, this is so boring. I don't care. And I was gonna give it 3 stars. But then there were some twists at the end that I did not see coming, which is crazy for historical fiction to, like, put you on a, like, what? Kind of twist. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. So the little, like, twist at the end totally redeemed it for me, but I will say that it did get kind of boring in the middle. So it was an interesting experience for me, but overall, I ended up enjoying it. So I will take that. Then I listened to Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This was another really interesting reading experience for me because I went through phases of, like, I really like these characters and what's happening, and then there were phases where I was like, this is really boring. Is it over yet? Contemporary books should never be over 400 pages. Like, this is just too long. So we're following the first son of the United States. So he's the president's son. And we're also following the Prince of England, and they hate each other. And for some reason, things happen that kind of put them back into each other's lives, and they realize that they ultimately actually love each other. And I have to say that for a premise that was kind of sold as this like enemies to lovers type of romance, they were enemies for about 5 seconds before all of a sudden they were like head over heels. Like at one point, one of the characters says a comment about how like he loves him so much he could die. And I just found the characters to be very interesting because one minute they came off feeling like they were in their 20s, like they were supposed to be. And other times they felt like they were teenagers, and I was very confused. So I liked it a lot, but I also like disliked it a lot. So I ended up with 3.5 stars because overall it was a decent story. It was a good story. I got it. I understood what was going on. It is very political in nature, so if you don't like books with politics, I'd probably stay away from this one. I don't understand why there was the love for this one that there was when it first came out. So it was okay. I'm glad that I finally got to it. I'm glad that I listened to it, because I think if I was probably reading it physically, I probably would have DNF'd it. But I'm glad that I got it. I think the thing too is because I read this one after really liking the Charm Offensive, which also has kind of like a royalty feel to it. Like obviously like that is like different royalty because that was like fake TV of like, will you accept my tiara? So like very different than this, which is like legit royalty. But because I knew that I liked the Charm Offensive and I knew the Charm Offensive could do it well, this just was very dull in comparison, if that makes sense. So still am okay with it. Just didn't love it. Then I actually just finished, I'm going to go a little out of order. I finished Woman 99 by Greer McAllister. This book was so kindly sent to me, I think last Christmas, by Kendra, because we both read The Arctic Fury and really loved it. So we were really excited to get our hands on this one. She read it and really didn't like it. And so then I think for the longest time I put it off because of that. And it was available as an immediate download. So I grabbed it and it was okay. So we're following Charlotte, and she has this wealthy family. She's kind of promised to a man to marry him, even though she like doesn't want to be. Her sister is recently locked up in an asylum, and she decides that she's going to do what she can to get her sister out. So she ends up like jumping into the water, looking like a lunatic, like she's trying to kill herself, so that way she can get put into this insane asylum as well. So that way she could like prove that she's not insane and that she can get her sister and they could leave together. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. They ultimately do a lot of flashbacks randomly with no warning. There's no like, it's not even like it's italicized or anything to show you that there's a flashback happening. So the flashbacks were kind of annoying because I was like, I just want to know what's going on in this place versus like what happened to get you here. And at the end of the day, I still don't really understand why her sister got put there in the first place, especially the events that happened in the end made me confused as to who put her there and why she was there. I don't know if it said it earlier and I just happened to like tune it out, or like, well, I read it physically. Like I read it as a Kindle, so like I don't know where the loss in translation went. So it was okay. Not anything like Arctic Fury, so that was kind of disappointing. But I'm glad that I finally faced my fear and read it. Yesterday, I also finished The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I listened to this one on audio. I had it from audio from Libro FM, but I also had it as a Netgalley, so I could have had my option of if I wanted to read it as a Kindle book or if I wanted to read it as a audiobook, and I decided to listen to it on audio, and I really enjoyed this one. I love this author duo. I think that they do such a nice job of both. I think that my prediction, because they're always double perspectives, so my prediction is one author writes one and one author writes the other. I don't know if that's actually true, but they have a way of blending their writing together where it doesn't feel disjointed or anything. And this is following a therapist named Avery. She used to be a licensed therapist until she does something that basically gets her license taken away. She's still practicing in an unconventional way, and she believes that she could treat people within 10 sessions, and if she can't treat you within 10 sessions, like, you are never going to be fixed anyways. So she takes on this couple, Marissa and Mark, and it's crazy. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I liked the ending. The ending was intense, which if you can have an intense ending, I'm always here for. I'm really glad that I listened to it. I think that was definitely the way to go again with this one. It was one that I was not anticipating reading so soon either. It does not come out until March, so I'm surprised that I just could not wait any longer and I had to read it now. So it does not come out till March, but I think that it's definitely one that you're going to want to pick up, especially if you could pick up the audiobook. I would do it that way. Then I just finished this morning Dead Woman Crossing by J.R. Adler. This is also Geneva Rose, so the same author who wrote the, why can't I say it now? The Perfect Marriage. And I loved The Perfect Marriage, and I got this one in the beginning of the year. I think I got this in the same haul that I got The War Widow actually in. And I don't know why I've been putting this off. It's a detective series, so I don't know if that's what was putting me off, but I finally was in the mood for it. She has a new book coming out this month that is not related to it at all, but for some reason I was like, I can't get that one if I haven't read this one. So I picked this one up and I could not put this one down. So this was my other 5-star read for the month. And this is following Kimberly King. She's a detective. She is coming to go live in a city in Oklahoma with her mother and her mother's new husband. She is leaving the NYPD. She's gone through a lot there, and she has a daughter now, and she really needs to look out for her daughter, so she decides to relocate to this town. She is now going to be the new deputy sheriff, I think, instead of a detective. And while she's there, there is a murder that occurs in this town that has never, besides the dead woman from 1905, there hasn't really been a ton of crime there. So, and the fact that this death is actually mirroring the death from 1905 obviously sparks a lot of interest. I really enjoyed this one. I couldn't put it down. I love her writing style. It's just so easy to consume, really enjoyable. Gave it 5 stars, taking all my willpower not to order book 2, even though book 2 is going to follow a completely different mystery, but I'm excited to see what that one will have in store. So hopefully I'll be able to read that one soon. So this one was a 5-star read for me. And then the one that I'm currently reading, and I have a feeling it's going to be 5 stars as well, which will be fantastic, is from the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. So I'm actually reading this one on my phone through Libby. So this one is a middle grade novel following Zoe. Zoe loves to bake, and her father has been in jail her whole life, so she lives with her mom and her stepdad. And it's the summer. Her friends have gone away. She's kind of fighting with her other boy next door best friend. She really wants, now that she's 12, she really wants to join the cooking competition on Food Network for kids, bakers, and her family is like, maybe not yet, so she has an internship at a bakery, and the day of her 12th birthday, she actually finds a letter in the mail for her from her dad, and she begins to converse with him secretly because she knows that her mother would never let her do it. And she starts to realize that she thinks her dad might be innocent, and she kind of wants to look more into that and how she could potentially get him out if that is truly the case. So, it's hard. I want to say it's a really sweet read, but it's also, not sweet because it's dealing with some hard topics, but I'm really enjoying it. I have a feeling this one's going to be 5 stars as well. And then I figured I would tell you the books that I am probably going to be picking up next. Kendra and I are going to be buddy reading Conjure Women by Afia Itakura. This has been on my shelf for a while now. I don't know why I'm really intimidated by this book. I've never even tried to read it, but for some reason I'm nervous to read it. So hopefully it'll be good. Kendra already started it. She's a few chapters in and said it's really good so far. So hopefully that's the case. And then from the library, I have borrowed the audiobook for The Family Next Door by Sally Hepworth. I really liked one of her books. The The Mother-in-Law. And then I didn't really care for her most recent release, The Good Sister. So this one's been on my shelf for a while now because I haven't decided, after reading The Good Sister, not really liking it. I've been a little nervous to pick this one up, but it's a $9 audiobook, so I should be able to get through it pretty quickly. And then for my next Kindle book, I have picked up The Huntress by Kate Quinn. I love Kate Quinn's books. I've read all of them except for The Rose Code and this one. I've really loved her Egyptian and her Italian books. So and her Italian Renaissance books. I haven't. Still, Alice was good, but I didn't love it. So it makes me nervous that she's going towards this World War II thing where everybody writes World War II stuff. So I figured if I could read it as a ebook, I might be less intimidated by it. So I'm excited to give it a try, and let's just hope it works out. So those are the 3 books that I'm about to start reading. Let me know if you've read any of these down below. How has your November been going so far? Let me know, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.